Guru Nation, we are on episode, let me tell you exactly, hold on, I forgot. 1028 since I started counting. There's probably more, but since I started counting, I started YouTube before podcast was a thing. Like it wasn't
Yep.
really, and then when it did start, you had to be a nerd to like figure out how do I put this on iTunes. It wasn't so easy
Why do
like
you think I
today.
didn't do this? Like I was like, no, this all sounds like I need a tech guru, and then I'm gonna need a fancy
No, not
microphone, and
anymore.
then I'm
Now
gonna
it's
need.
easy.
I'm like,
Now it's
I don't
easy,
think I can handle
but
this.
it is still orders of magnitude easier to just put it on LinkedIn than to put something on audio, which doesn't
Yeah,
make sense because the video is like a higher uh, size file. You would imagine video, but YouTube killed that game. So the
yep.
podcast game is all fragmented. So it's a lot harder with audio only, believe it or not.
To
But
figure out.
we got the legendary Edie Edens here. Last time she came on, we tried to expose some major fraud scandal in Miami, which sounds like it's a daily thing over there, but we didn't have enough time to talk about her career. We kind of danced around it, and I think it requires a deeper dive. And so Edie Edens is here. We did talk about your childhood, your upbringing, entrepreneurial father. Clearly, he molded you in the right direction. But then you have
Oh,
a
if only he
whole
was listening to hear that, he would be beaming.
well, send it to him. I need more subscribers to you. Shout out to Edie's dad, Mr. Edens. Was it?
Taylor,
My bad,
Taylor. So,
Mr.
yep, yep.
He'll unsubscribe
Dr.
just for
Taylor.
that.
Don't,
Just for
yeah,
that.
Dr. Taylor. Don't get him started. The man's a
Dr.
lawyer and a
Taylor.
doctor.
Dr. Taylor, thank you for the subscription. Your daughter is amazing. I think I made it back. Made it back up.
There you go. There you
Um,
go.
and then you spent a lot of your career at the academic setting,
Yep.
which is like a foreign language to me. I have some experience monitoring a site in academia, but that's about it.
Yeah, it's different. It's to me sometimes it's really hard, I think, for us to remember. Like when you talk about silos, the fact that academia in and of itself is a ginormous silo, right? Like just the act of doing research at an academic site versus a non-academic site is a completely different experience. And like for me, working at both, having a career in both, helping clients in both, I mean, it's a completely different hats to wear. But yet you're still talking about the same industry. You're still talking about helping patients. You're still talking about clinical trials. You're still talking about the FDA. Like, how can these be in the same garden and such different flowers? You know what I mean? Like, how can one literally be a bush and one's, a vegetable? Like, it's really and to me, it's funny because I mean, I've been doing this for almost 20 years and we still have a lot of that. And one informs the other. Like, folks don't realize that for so long, academia and the large sites and the large hubs are really where sponsors sent almost all their trials. It was just the way we did things. I'm not saying it was right or wrong. It was just the way it started.
hmm
It was we didn't have independent sites. You didn't have physician practices doing like what you're doing now. You didn't have a site network, site management organizations. And in terms of credibility, because the way research is done today, human subjects research is done today, and the way clinical research is regulated in the United States is still pretty young. I mean, we're talking the 1970s.
Yeah,
Speaking of Dr. Taylor, he was in med school by the time these regulations were coming out. So, I mean, the way we're doing it isn't really all that old. Now, research itself, much older, different conversation. But in that regard, at that time, the way you accessed your healthcare is you went to the most reputable place you knew. If you were in a rural space, you were on your own, good luck. But if you weren't and you could get to the big city, you went to the big names, right? Of wherever was closest to you. And so naturally, that's where research gravitated, right? That
of
makes
course.
sense when you really think of it like that.
hmm
And they were larger organizations. They had usually hospitals attached. So you have a lot of built-in clinic nursing facilities and capabilities that you don't have to worry about in a small standalone. And so, yeah, I very serendipitously started at a huge academic medical center. Most folks know Indiana University. I still live in Indianapolis. I don't hide that. And
Congrats to the
it,
Hoosiers football, the best
yes,
football program.
we're having a
Indiana
really good
is
time with that.
now a football state.
Yes, it is. wild. After being here almost 20 years and hearing nothing about football, all about basketball, let me just tell you, it is really wild and also a blast, and
And it's
I'm
gonna be
here for it.
hilarious if they suck at basketball now for the
I
next
know,
couple of
right? Believe me, those conversations are being had live on the ground. Okay, I am reporting
Yeah.
live on the ground. I promise you, it's happening. No, we're loving it. And so for me, I mean, I grew up around medicine. I grew up in a medical family. It wasn't what I'd actually gone to school to do. I'd found my passion in human rights and helping those who weren't able to help themselves. I was
Mm.
particularly interested in journalism and public relations. So I really felt like
Mm.
by being a reporter in places where human rights violations were occurring, that's the only way
So
you
what
can.
is it about human rights that like I could see how
For
a lot
me,
of
it was
young people
like,
go there, but what made it
yeah,
for you?
for me, it was so I'm growing up in a really small, poor, rural town. It's not a secret. My dad's a doctor. I mean, everybody
Oklahoma.
knows everybody. Yeah, you're in this tiny town. And so everyone's looking at you automatically making some assumptions. Like you must live in a bigger house. You must have a better life. You
You're the
must have
rich girl.
money. Yeah, right. I mean, and to be fair, this is a very poor town. And my dad's coming home and he's talking about all the patients he's seeing. And, this is the 80s and no one has health insurance and everyone is on some type of government subsidy. And he's genuinely worried about his patients, getting their medications or making their next appointment or having long-term care in a skilled nursing facility if that's what they needed, because he dealt with a lot of older patients.
Mm.
Um, and so you're seeing this everywhere. Like there's no ignoring that this is happening. And I was just raised by a parent who was like, yeah, you got to be born into this family. Also, you could have been born two streets over with a whole lot less. So you don't get to take credit for anything that you didn't do. Last I checked, you're, 5 years old. So you didn't pay for this house. You didn't get this degree. You don't drive this car. Like, I don't want to hear any of that out of your
You
mouth.
were not Edie Law yet.
No, God, no. And and I want you to do all that. And I want to be the parent who gets to give you those opportunities, just like I know every parent wants to, whether they're able to or not. But you need to read the room of where you are. You
So
lucked
you were
in.
raised with humility, and your
Yes.
parents were very,
Extraordinary.
very focused on that aspect.
Extraordinary. And it
Mm.
was very about, so instead of looking at it as just being grateful and saying, thank you, universe, for putting me in this position, what are you going to do with that? You
Mm.
got lucky. So that luck, that honor, that privilege, however you want to, classify it, that's actually a responsibility. We can do with it. We can do
Mm-hmm.
with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so for him, it was helping patients. And he eventually left the actual active practice of patients to become a lawyer and go to business school and become a chief medical officer because he was worried the direction we were headed in terms of the quality of care for patients who couldn't advocate for themselves or who were in rural settings.
Wow.
And he felt like he could make a bigger difference. And so it just continued. And he's doing this as I'm growing up, like before I've ever even left the house. So I'm seeing him reinvent his career. I'm seeing him continue to walk the talk.
Did you
And
think
I'm
much
like,
of it at the
okay.
time? Because as a kid, you don't really notice, but later you notice, like, hey, when he did that,
I definitely think more of it now, but to be fair, if you think I'm intense, I've got nothing on my dad. So there's like no way this point wasn't being driven home on a very regular basis. So there was no missing the point. It was, do you now see things that he did that maybe he didn't verbalize that reinforced and showed you what he was
I
doing,
see.
whether you realized it or not? But did I know he was doing it at the time? Yeah,
So did
absolutely.
he
He was
take you,
huge
was
about
he
it.
like hands-on, take you to the clinic sometimes, like, hey, look
Yeah.
at, yeah. So you
I
saw
lived in his
firsthand.
office. I lived in
Okay.
his office. I lived all over the hospital. I mean, I remember walking in and everybody, I mean, it's a very small rural hospital, let's be very fair.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I remember I did rounds with him every single Sunday. And he would make sure, of course, this was before HIPAA, so he could bring me in the room. And he'd stop outside of each room and be like, this person's been through something really tough. They don't feel well right now. This is how they're going to react, and this is how you need to act, and this is what we need to do in this moment. And do you understand that? Can you handle that? Can we walk in? Can we brighten their day? And he would do just these small things that I took for granted and didn't realize other people did. Like on Christmas morning when Not when I was like 2 years old and getting up at, 6 in the morning, but when I was a little older, when you're in that age where you're not getting up and running to the tree and like, he would intentionally go ahead and get up in the morning because he knew he had to round, and he'd get up earlier than the family, knowing no one will miss me if I'm gone at 7 a.m. And he'd go get breakfast and take it to all the nurses on each floor because you're working on Christmas, because
Wow.
hospitals don't have holidays. And I just wanted you to see a doctor here with you today who doesn't have to be, or an administrator, because he was later like a CMO and a CEO. I want you to see someone here who doesn't have to be here today saying thanks in person, because like that matters. You're taking care
Wow.
of our patients. We wouldn't be here without you.
And this was still in
Um,
Oklahoma?
yeah, and then he did it in Missouri, and then he also did it in West Virginia. So he moved throughout his career.
Wow. So all
But the same
underserved,
thing,
all
all
underserved areas.
underserved rural populations. Yeah,
Interesting. Where is he at
and
now?
really
He's
seriously.
retired now, right? Or he's still working?
Well, you can't say that. If you say that, he'll go get a job tomorrow to prove that he's not. So don't say
He's
that.
chilling. He's more chilling.
He's just relaxing.
Yeah, yeah.
He's enjoying his grandchildren, is what we're saying.
Okay.
But no, he's in the West Virginia, Ohio area.
Wow,
So that
okay.
was where he wrapped up. But it just that makes an impression on you. And so for me, I wasn't sure it was going to be science, but it was like I needed to do something to pay it forward. Like if I had, and for me, it was like, okay, well, what are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? And to be fair, I'd gone to law school thinking international human rights law was going to be it. And I'd already started working with the United Nations. I'd gotten the privilege to be overseas. The law school I ended up graduating from at IU had a phenomenal program in international human rights law where they helped us become a non-governmental organization. We lobbied and helped individuals. But it was interesting. It kept coming back in a lot of instances to health. So, like, I'm in law school, I'm all about the international human rights law, but what we're adjudicating, for example, this was a South American country, and there was a violation in the United Nations in some deep compliance covenants, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And think of that like your GCP, right? So that's your GCP for how all these countries say they will treat their people in terms of their political rights and their civil rights just because they're human, just because they exist,
Yeah.
and just because this country agrees to work with the United Nations. And now we find out if you are in a medical clinic and you're tested and you come back HIV positive, that's announced in the waiting room. You're stigmatized in your community. Your company will be shuttered. You'll be kicked out of your religious community. Your daughter will not be married anymore because it carries such a stigma in this particular community.
Hmm.
And it's a violation of your civil and political rights for a healthcare provider to go blab your personal information, regardless of whether or not you're in a HIPAA
Why would
protected
they do
country,
that like that?
because of the political underpinnings of that particular community.
So they thought it would be a deterrent to like let's this if we do this, less people end up
Right.
getting HIV
Right.
or being HIV
And
positive.
there was still at the time a misunderstanding of how you even contract HIV and who
Right,
gets it.
right,
And
right,
there's,
right,
a
right, right.
belief of only certain people of certain types get it,
Yeah.
right? And so this is all
Where was
coming
this
down
in
to
Colombia or where? Peru?
Chile. So this was
Ah,
Chile
Chile.
at the
Wow.
time. And so here I'm sitting there going, okay, but I keep getting drawn back to the medical world, like somehow in it, you know what I mean?
So you're in
And the
law
law,
school studying this particular
yes.
situation.
And
Okay.
I would take time off from school. I spent all my spring breaks and my summers and my Christmases traveling all over the world to do this work in addition to what I was studying in law school. Like it was
Wow.
just it was what I wanted to do and I knew it.
You know
And
Spanish?
then I don't. And I
Oh.
need to learn it. And Daniel Perez, this is my shout to you. This is my promise to you. I'm going to finally learn it because he's been on me for a while and it's like just totally my own fault. So if
Wait, so
anyone has
okay,
any good resources,
where'd you do undergrad? IU?
Oklahoma State.
Ah, okay. So you
Yeah,
hate the
I'm diehard
Sooners.
Cowboys.
You hate the
Oh, yeah.
Sooners.
That's why every time you wear anything crimson, I'm like,
Yeah, I
come
had to
on.
get a souvenir in Oklahoma City,
Yeah, well, you
that's
could have gotten orange and black. I mean,
but
not
they're not even from there. They're like somewhere else, no?
Oklahoma State.
Yeah, aren't they in a different city? Like no, they're not near Oklahoma
It's
City.
Stillwater. So OU is in Norman and
Yeah.
Oklahoma State is in Stillwater, and those are equidistant to Oklahoma City.
Oh, my bad. I just
To be
thought.
fair, 85% of the state, we always joked around at Oklahoma State, if you're wearing orange and black, you definitely went there or like you know someone, like you're connected because
Yeah.
everybody else in the state wears crimson, even though they've probably never been in Norman in their lives. Like fair enough, fair
All
enough.
right, all right.
It's the bigger school. It's the bigger school. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no, Oklahoma State. And then I came to IU. I actually started at OU Law and then came to IU to do their program in international human rights law
Did you
and
know
then
anyone
graduated.
there, or you just liked the school, or?
I did. I did. I had a couple different opportunities. It was weird. My family, especially my poor father, I gave him a heart attack so many times. He, he was like, "You got into like American and, in DC. Isn't that where you should go if you want to do this international law crazy thing that you're going to do?"
Mm,
Which, by the way, I think is nuts. He just couldn't see where I was going to go with it. Like, what is the salary paying job that I know will make sure you're okay on the other side of this adventure that you're on? Like, I love that you're on it, but where's the concrete
yeah.
income? You know what I mean? Because as a doctor, you're putting a lot on the line, you're taking out a lot of debt, but you will
And when
receive
when you say something
income
like
at the
human
end.
rights, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, honestly.
Illicit, like, wow, my kid's going to be a millionaire. I definitely am not worried about them living in a tiki hut in a foreign country, poor. And so that was it. And so he was like, I love what you're doing. I love that this is what you took away from your childhood, but also what's the end game? Where are you going to go? And I just would very openly say, I don't know.
Mm,
I actually don't know.
mm.
And that was the part I think that was like, and to be fair, as a parent, right? You get it. It's terrifying. Like, you're like, what do you mean you don't have a plan? Have I taught you
So
nothing?
so straight out of law school, what did you do?
So I graduate. I have a JAG Corps offer in the Air Force, and I have 9 months until I will go into officer training school.
Wait, what is that?
It's the two,
Jack Jack Core?
so Judge Advocate General.
Ah,
So
okay.
the lawyers that
Wow.
support internally in the military. Yeah. So it's a very prominent program. It's very competitive to get into.
What is
And
that
you
for,
do
like
actually have,
internally when there's disputes amongst?
yep, all legal needs of the armed forces for that branch. So you would have JAG Corps for
Interesting.
the Navy, you would have JAG Corps for the Air Force, like they have your own, and you do become an officer. You do have to actually you have to go through training.
So like a few
Um,
good men, like you were talking like Jack Nicholson type stuff, or?
he
Huh.
would have been JAG Corps. He would have been considered JAG Corps. And that's not what they focus on in the movie.
Right,
And my
right.
thought behind that was it's 2007, 2008, massive economic recession. Valedictorian of my law school had his law firm offer rescinded. I wasn't far behind him. The writing was on the wall for most folks. Like there were no jobs, no matter how awesome you were. It was
Wait,
just
so
a
you were
really
like
bad time.
almost valedictorian student?
Oh, no, 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 no. I didn't
Oh,
mean that.
oh,
I
okay.
mean like in terms of like all of us in jobs and all of us who were towards the top of the class, like we
I
were
see.
seeing
I
each
see.
other struggle. And so it was like, look, if someone who's in the same realm that I'm in, did the same things I did, has the same resume I do, I'm not going to have any more luck. And I
I see.
thought,
I see.
federal government, really competitive program, way to give back, still giving back, still in that mindset. Also, federal government probably won't go under for 4 years. I mean, like I felt like pretty good, like, because everyone was so scared, like whatever job you take, it's going to be gone in 6 months. And so I had 9 months. And to be fair, so IU has two law schools. The law school I was at is on the same campus as the med school, and it has a phenomenal health law program. So most of my friends were there to do health law, and most were like, "Wait, aren't you from a medical family? Why aren't you doing health law?" And I'm like, "Nah, nah, nah, not my thing." And so one of them's working at the IU IRB. And she's like, "Hey,
Mm.
we've got this 9 month consultant gig. We've got a problem, a compliance issue that we need to bring all hands on deck and add some extra people to handle. Different type of compliance, but it's in the healthcare world. It's your people. You'll, speak the speak and walk the walk. I just need to make sure you read some certain policies and understand. But I mean, you've already presented to the United Nations and gotten yourself kicked out of a country. So I think you could probably handle being on an IRB for
Wait,
nine
what got
months. You
you
know what I
kicked out
mean?
of a country?
So one of the jobs that I took while I was in law school is I was acting as a media institute journalist who was visiting a country. While doing that, I was also really there to observe human rights violations and report those back to the Human Rights Commission at the United
Ah, you
Nations.
were a spy.
And when you do that, they don't like to let you back in the country. So
What
there is
country is this?
some Zambia,
You can't
which
go
to be
back?
fair is a beautiful country. It's a
Can
really
you go
beautiful
back
country. Yeah.
now?
It would not be in my best interest. It would not be in my best interest. It would not
Really?
be in my best interest.
To go back, wow, you might
Nope.
get arrested. Whoa.
Yeah, just don't
Let's
really
do a
want to find
site
out.
in Zambia.
I mean, the sad part is it was, like I said, amazing people, amazing country.
Wow.
I was just there for a very specific purpose,
That's the
and
rebel in you.
I served the purpose, and I
Hmm.
I wanted them to get the support that they needed, and I
Interesting.
got it at a
Interesting.
cost. But anyway,
Okay.
that was to say, that was why my friend was like, I think you could handle, doctors and an IRB in some stressful situations. Like, I feel confident you're going to be okay. You just need to understand what the hell a common rule is, and how the FDA plays into this. I need you to sit down and read this.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had to interview, of course, and get the job, and I did. And then I sat down, and it was like, all right, here's what you're going to do. You've got to go help all these investigators. We've taken their studies. Um, it was, to be fair, not the researchers' fault. There had been issues at the IRB at the time. And so the researchers had done what they felt like was appropriate to get their approval, but some
Mm.
steps had been missed. And so the IRB was having to pause the researchers' research and go back and re-review. And the researchers were mad, as anyone would be. Like, I followed your red tape rules, you screwed it up, and now you're slowing me
Were
down because
these
of it.
like oncology stuff or
No,
no?
this is all social behavioral. So
Oh,
this is
okay,
it.
okay.
But I would argue I will work with biomedical folks over social behavioral folks all day long. Because here was the unique difference. It was a really good lesson early on in compliance to learn, like, depending on your audience, it's very different. I'd grown up around biomedical people. So I took it for granted that when I walked in the room to help the social behavioral person, they just knew that this rule had to be followed. Like, this is a federal government rule, IRB approval, you're touching humans. That's just how this goes. Not so much. When your whole entire area of research and specialization is like folklore or mythology or history or culture or things that have no interventional nature, right? You question the very nature of the rules that exist at all. And so I would end up going in four steps ahead of where the conversation was because I
Hmm.
presumed
So
you had
these were
accepted
observational, like retrospective analysis.
very low risk, very,
Hmm.
very low risk. But these folks are like, I don't think you should be able to regulate me at all. And I'm like,
Right.
oh, we have to start the conversation there instead of four steps there, forward of like, of
What are
course
the
you have to be
dangers?
regulated.
What are the dangers
IRB.
on their?
And so that was it. I would have to sit there and try to explain to them where their risk was. And like, yes, you're not putting a needle in someone. No, you're not giving them a study drug. We're not suggesting that your risk is anywhere close to that. But I always give this great example of, so someone wanted to go into a race and culture course, and where there's going to be sensitive topics discussed, right? And they're like, it's a huge lecture hall. I'm going to walk in at the end of a regular lecture. I'm going to say, hi, I'm doing this research. Here's these anonymous surveys. I'm going to leave them in a box. If you want to, you come up, you fill out a survey, you leave it in the box. If you don't, leave, blow me off. And I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave the room. I'll never see who even comes up. You won't put your name on it. This is very low risk. Let me see your survey. Well, you asked for their class, you asked for their hometown, you asked for their age. Like, slowly we just took this room and made it a lot smaller. I can pick
Mm.
some specific people out. Like, if you're a non-traditional student from your international and you happen to be a freshman, yeah, now that room went from 400 people to 4 real quick. And by the way, the questions you're asking are things like, how do you feel about, at the time they were studying and discussing Ebonics? Do you feel like it's a real language? Do you feel like it's not? Extrapolate on how you feel about this.
So
If you were African American,
the danger with that is if the data ever gets leaked, that person could be identified, right?
their identification, their confidentiality, and the questions you were asking were extremely sensitive.
But isn't that
So,
like, to play devil's advocate, like,
yeah,
wouldn't they need sensitive type questions in order to have more impact on whatever they're
yeah,
studying? Or
absolutely. So then why do I need to know your hometown?
hmm. So the risk is, let's not identify these people, because you take like a 300 student room and you can
Right,
basically pick two or three
right,
if these surveys ever go missing and somebody
right,
finds one on the ground or something.
right. And so it was sitting down with them and going like, no, is this the same risk as a first in
Mm,
human phase 1 trial? No, and no one is
hmm.
suggesting that it is. But there are risks here we can't ignore. And just because you're not a bad actor and you don't think of doing these terrible things, it doesn't mean it won't happen, and it's our job to make sure it doesn't. So,
Even if their SOPs were likely, these will be shredded right after we record
right.
the data.
Well, and that was the other part is most of your social behavioral aren't set up the way your biomedical system is. I mean, you say SOPs like they had them. And I don't
Hmm.
mean that as shade. I just mean that wasn't the standard and the best practice in that moment in that time.
I
And
see.
you wouldn't have seen yourself as a research site, so you wouldn't have subjected yourself to those types of best practice and
Interesting.
types of and
And that's
so
the kind of
it
stuff universities do. Because I remember
right.
when I was at U of A in Tucson, and I was in a psychology class afterwards, somebody did come in and say, "Hey, for extra credit, everyone's gonna get a, whatever." And I was like, "Shit, I can use whatever extra credit I can get at this point."
Right.
So I had to go to some computer lab and click boxes like when I saw a
Yep.
circle or a square, some shit like
Yep.
that.
And to be fair, I mean, there's some real value. Sometimes you really
Hmm.
need these surveys, these educational news. But it taught me it did two things. One, it taught me that working in social behavioral is actually every bit as complicated as biomedical, just completely different and for different
Hmm.
reasons, right? Like it's a
And
different
less like
crowd, it's a different
less
audience.
flashy or less
Yeah.
headline worthy.
Yes, way less
Mm.
headline worthy, still important. Rules still exist. Sometimes rules are lesser known. I mean, when you're dealing with clinicians, they're used to so much red tape in their daily practice. When you bring them into clinical trials and tell them there's more red tape, it's like, all right, great. I figured as much. What do I got to do?
Yeah,
Who's my rule keeper? Tell me where I'm signing. Tell me what my
everyone
responsibilities are. Not
understands that.
right. And it's not because I don't take it
Uh,
seriously. It's just they're inundated, they're used to it. But a lot of your social behavioral folks haven't been in that environment. And so they're like,
Interesting.
whoa, you think you can show up and regulate me? Just who do you think you are? You're going to tell me what questions I can ask for my research that's going to impact the quality of my research? I don't think so. And
Mm.
so you really had to work with them. And so it ended up being a really good learning experience because I had to actually know my regulations. Like I actually had to read them and understand them because I had to explain them every day. I didn't get to walk in and go, you know, the thing with the thing, well, I'm here to audit it.
So
Like
that's
I
still
had to
covered
actually walk them
under
through it.
the Code of Federal Regulations. It's just
Yep.
not
So it's under common
21.
rule. Yep.
Okay, so the common rule
Yeah.
covers that as well.
Yeah. So common rule covers that. If it's federally funded, it's covered in the common rule.
Okay.
And then essentially, when you're moving into drug device biologics diagnostics, is when you get into FDA. That's a very oversimplified way to say that
I
because I
see.
know
So the
people will get in the
FDA is
common.
not involved in these kind of things, but it's still under the common rule. Good clinical
Yep.
practice still involved or not?
Possibly. So at
Possibly.
that time, no. At that time, no.
Okay.
Usually not in these types of really low risk, almost
Because it's
exempt
not
level
really
research.
clinical, right? It's not
Right.
a,
Right.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
as an organization, the academic organization, you still got to know this is happening at your
Mm-hmm.
organization. You got to
Mm-hmm.
make sure people know they got to submit and ask permission to do
That's true.
things.
That's true.
You
There's
got to make
risk.
sure there's still risk
I
there.
think
And
back to my own
try,
experience, like what if I didn't try and I just clicked whatever and then
yeah,
somehow it came out that like I'm not as smart as someone thought I was, and then it prevents me from getting into another
right.
program, right?
Right, right.
Mm,
Exactly. There's all sorts of things that could come out of it.
mm.
And so learning that really helped. And then it basically, at the end of the 9 months of this, contract, I mean, I was hooked. And I was working
Mm.
with individuals who worked both with the social behavioral and the biomedical. And
You
they
were
were like,
hooked on this.
and they were like,
Wow.
do you want to go a little more biomedical? Because like you've done social behavioral and that's great and it has a place and it's important.
Why were you hooked though? Because people's rights were being violated without the researchers realizing it, or what was it that hooked you?
Part of it was that part of it was two things. I figured out I had a talent that I didn't know was a talent that I didn't know other people didn't have. And that was and I hope this will so come off as humble. I hope I've established myself as that. But I can walk in a room with some pretty smart folks with a lot of initials after their name, and I just don't pee in my pants. And that's because I was very lucky to grow up
Yeah,
running around the hospital, running
yeah, yeah.
around dinner parties where my dad had all of his doctor friends over. And I knew they were really smart. It wasn't like I didn't think these people were saving lives and important. I just also knew them as Tim and John. And
Yeah.
I saw so and so trip over a trash can, and I knew
They
so
were
and
not
so's
like some
daughter. They were
god or
human.
some
They
deity,
were
because
human.
yeah, yeah,
They're human. And to
yeah.
be fair, the families we were close with, some of them went through divorce. They went through
Hmm.
loss. They were
Hmm.
real humans.
Yeah.
And as I lovingly say, they went to the bathroom sitting down just like the rest of us.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I didn't walk in and go like, oh, that is Dr. So and so. I can't talk to him. It was like, well,
Yeah.
no, that's Bob. Bob the human, just like me. He's just really good at what he does. And so when I would walk in and have some of these difficult conversations, or potentially have to give folks who don't like to hear the word no an answer that they didn't necessarily like, I just delivered a very certain way.
So
I
your
wasn't
skill was the
timid,
confidence and the
the
ability
communication.
and the willingness to have the
Yeah.
difficult conversations that
Right. And
others.
to go, look, I get you're going to be mad. I'm about to tell you something you don't want to hear. So I'm going to give you a second. Like yell, scream, cry, maybe let me duck
Did you
before you
piss
throw
off a lot of
things.
people?
Oh, God, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But to be fair, when you're done, when you've had your 30 seconds of like, how dare you? And I'm going to call so and so. And do you know who I am? And like, get mad. I don't blame you. I'm not giving you good news.
Yeah.
I'm also the person who can help you fix it. So when you're ready to take a deep breath and fix it, I'm here.
So
Let's
here's a
do
personal
this.
question. Try to be as honest as you can. Do you enjoy when you call someone out and then they get upset, or do you just, not that you're not afraid of it, but do you actually
Right.
enjoy that, or do you just say, hey, that's comes with the territory?
It comes with the territory. If it's someone I'm calling out because they've been a jerk to my client and they deserve what they've got coming, I just, oh yeah, I enjoy the hell out of
Then
that.
you
I'm not gonna
enjoy it.
lie.
Okay.
Then I enjoy it.
So
But
you're
if
not
it's
conflict
genuinely,
seeking.
no, God, no,
No.
no, I hate
Okay.
it. Absolutely,
Okay.
really, truly. Like in
Okay.
my personal life, no drama. Absolutely none. Like my husband and I both have a rule. Like if there's more than one like eyebrow raised, like
But
there's a problem.
in
Like
work, you're not conflict seeking either. You're just not afraid of it. Okay. Yeah. Because
because I mean, to be fair, like that's tough. Like
yeah.
research integrity, research misconduct. I mean, one of the hardest jobs I ever did was someone calls the research integrity officer at your organization and they've alleged that you've, fabricated your research, your life's work. And now I have to come tell you. I have to surprise you at your lab. I can't give you
Mm.
notice because what if you are doing something and you're trying to hide it? I have to potentially bring security, which is very invasive. Your postdocs and your people in your lab are watching. You're probably tenured faculty. You've probably been published before.
So you've
And
done
here's
that?
little 5'2" me walking in going like, "Hi, you don't know me, but we've had an allegation that this entire piece of work was
Wow.
manipulated and plagiarized, and so I'm going to need you to step away from your desk. I need to shut your lab down, and I need to tell you what your
You've done
rights are."
this?
And it's so hard. Like it's so hard because to be fair,
Were they wrong? Did it turn out they were
sometimes
wrong? Wow.
sometimes they were wrong, sometimes they were right. And like that's terrible. I mean, if
Hmm.
someone walked in my office right now and was like, Edie, I'm going to question everything you've ever done. I'm going to call your credibility on the carpet. You don't know who I am or why you should take me seriously, but this is really serious. Step away from your computer. I'd be like, I'll punch you in the face. Get out of my house. I mean, like, I mean,
Yeah.
and of course their first reaction is, I'm going to call general counsel. And I'm like, yeah, general counsel already knows I'm here. They sent me. And they're like, well, I'm going to call the CEO of such and such or the president of this. And I'm like, yeah, they all already know I'm here because I
Hmm.
have to give a notification before I come. And the sooner that you step away from everything and let me do my job, the sooner I can hopefully exonerate you. And this will all be
Wow.
over. But that's a really awful thing to do. And
Sounds
for
like
me,
a
it's
sucky
like,
job.
it is. So one, you got to have the Constitution. You got to have the Constitution
They better
that
pay
that
you a
the
lot for that, no?
no, they don't. I mean, as in my own firm, yes, I'm well compensated, but that's not usually how that works in academia. And so it's like I think it's a combination of one, rip the band-aid off, don't go easy, just get in there and get the job done. Like if you try to poo-poo it, it makes it worse. Two, at least be empathetic. This could be
Yeah.
a really bad actor. Also, this could be someone who didn't do anything wrong.
Hmm.
So go in with that box of Kleenex, but maybe security outside just in case, right? Be ready
Yeah.
to pivot depending on how they reply. Um, and then you have to stay firm,
That's how I
even
was
when,
thinking, like putting myself in your shoes. How would I do this? I'd probably
yeah,
just be the nicest person I possibly could be and
Yeah,
like,
but also you have to be like, no, I need you to stop typing on your laptop.
yeah,
You have to
yeah,
step away from your laptop
yeah,
now.
yeah.
I know this is very hard. I need you to step away. Yes. I'm sorry. If you don't step away, I'll have to have security come in here. Please stop. I don't want to do that.
Mm.
And so you're like trying to be as calm and gentle.
Because you don't
You're
want
also
them
trying
to get
to,
the kill switch and like,
right,
delete everything.
right. And you're
Yeah.
trying to move it forward and you're trying to keep it very quiet
That's
because you don't want
crazy.
anyone to hear
How many
about it.
times did you have to do this?
I mean, that was my job for a couple of years.
So you did
You
this like on
have
a weekly basis or
So in research integrity, if you're federally funded, if you have any federal funds in research
what the
integrity,
heck?
you
How
have to
much freaking
have a
fraud is
compliance
going on in
program.
Indiana? We need to do our next podcast on that.
Oh, it's not Indiana. I want to be clear. I mean, this is required of all your organizations.
So they sent you to
Um,
other schools or it was just all
no,
in
no, no, no. Each organization has to have their own. So if you're at IU, you have a research integrity program. If you're at
holy
Mayo, you have a
shit.
research integrity program. If you're at Columbia, you have a research. So every academic
All
institution is going to
that
have
and
their own
they still
program.
had all the fraud. Did you see that article like 2 years ago? Like more academia has more fraud than private
And it's
industry.
hard because it's so huge. And so, like,
Mm,
this is where early in my career, I learned so much. I mean, being at a huge organization, seeing how hard it was to get your arms around things, how many different priorities there are at one given time. You're not the only person who needs resources. Every time a political administration changes, things
yeah.
change. I mean, just seeing it on this
But
ginormous
how did they
scale,
sniff out the fraud? Because these are smart people doing the fraud. You would think they would
you
know how to
are
cover it.
you are very much relying on your own community to call you out. You have to have
Ah,
someone, you have to have a complainant. I mean, you have
I
to have
see, I
someone
see.
either, sometimes it will be from inside the lab, right? So someone seeing something and saying something. To be fair, that's terrifying. You're probably going to lose your job quite quickly. And if you're on some type of a visa, that's a real concern for you as a postdoc. And that was before the current administration. So now it's, even heightened situation. So there's that. It could be that in the process of it getting published, someone questioned it and either it got published and now someone's saying, I think it needs to be retracted,
Hmm.
or in the process of it getting peer reviewed, someone called it out and now an allegation's been made to the organization. It could also be, it's kind of like what we talked about with the Miami situation, where federal entities talk to each other more than folks give them credit for. So it could
Hmm.
be, say something's come up in an IRB. There's been a couple too many deviations. Something seems off on this particular study. And as the IRB is diving in, they go, this doesn't seem like IRB noncompliance. This seems like falsification. This seems like fabrication because there's different standards. So research
Hmm.
misconduct is you plagiarized it, you falsified it. So you completely invented that subjects even existed. There never were any. That's misconduct.
That's
Non
misconduct. That's
non
criminal, right?
Well, it can be, but for
Oh,
this purpose, for Office of Research Integrity, that's misconduct. Now, if you had real subjects who were eligible and on study, and misdosed, misdid this, misdid that, that is IRB non-compliance.
right,
So
right.
they're different. They're both very bad. You shouldn't do either, but they're different, and so
One
one
is
might catch
clearly
the other.
worse, though. Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, it's
Mm.
the perfect example um, is the vaccines being related to autism. So that was a debunked researcher who was later found to have completely falsified and fabricated all of the research related to proving that connection. Unfortunately, you don't find that out till 8 years after it, and it's very difficult to rewrite the PR that it's already received at that point in time. And
Right.
to be fair, there's a lot of folks who go, "Oh, you're trying to cover it up, or it's a conspiracy." Well, for those of us in research integrity and misconduct land, that is literally like our guiding principle case. Like, if you want an example of how bad research misconduct can be, and the public effect and the public health downstream effect, take individuals who believe that their early childhood vaccines are related to autism and have not vaccinated their children in the United States. Because it's completely debunked. It's
Hmm.
completely debunked. And
Hmm.
and and I mean, this Wakefield will never work again. He's out of research, and there's no question behind it. Anyone who is associated with the studies has been discredited. Everything's been retracted. There's
Mm.
no scientific journal in the world that would agree that it's good science, but damage done.
Court of
And
public
you've got,
opinion.
yep, exactly. Exactly. And so it's really hard. It's really hard. And to be fair, it's also a space where it's not as if in non-federally funded research, no one's ever falsified or fabricated or plagiarized, but it's much harder to do anything about that. You have to go criminal civil court because you don't have federal funds involved, so you don't have a federal guideline you can prosecute under. If you have federal funds involved, which is more likely to happen in academia, then there's at least a punitive chain, right? Of like,
Right.
okay, well, now we have a process for this. And if we find you guilty, there's a federal office for this. And then they'll take you to the
Hmm.
DOJ and sue you for that. You know, I mean, there's a chain of command of what happens when we find it, how we discover it, how we go about adjudicating it, et cetera, and so forth. Outside of that, you don't have that. Not that you shouldn't, but you're just not required to. So if,
Yeah.
you know, you're suddenly at your research site and you see something and you go, I'm really concerned about this, you're going to want to say something. But to be fair, most independent sites and site networks aren't immediately going to go, you know, I think this is FFP. It's research misconduct. Like you
Right.
wouldn't know
Right.
that. Like you wouldn't have been in that
Well, and quite
world.
honestly, like, I mean, I'm a site owner myself, and you don't necessarily want to hire people like hyper vigilant. Like,
Right.
I'm just gonna be
Right.
real talk. Like, you want quote unquote normal people who are just chill. Like, unless you're actually doing fraud, you
Right.
know, you any site can be audited at any time and they're gonna find stuff. So as a
Yep.
site owner, the last thing you want is somebody who's like hyper vigilant or questioning everything. You're like,
Freaking out
eh,
about every little thing.
yeah, like this person
Well,
may
you
be
got to have the
good, but
balance. You have
yes,
to have the
yes.
balance. It's like that's what I
Mm.
talk about with my team, whether you're legal, whether you're, you know, my quality, my ops, my reg, you know. So, yes, behind the scenes, let's absolutely find everything. Let's absolutely think of everything. That's our job.
Hmm.
Now, before we present it to the client, let's talk about that. So,
Mm.
what are the chances of this? Let's heat map it for them. We can't present everything as a 10. There has to be, you know, hot and cold,
Right,
and also think of it the same way we're thinking of our own business, guys, because to be fair, we're in our own growing space, right? So there's
right.
some things that we know we need to work on, but we also know we're not doing that till summer because it's not as on fire as what we're working on today. So how do
Hmm.
we take that same approach for a business and go, look, I can't in good conscience and without, you know, committing malpractice, not tell you you do have 10 risks on the table here. What I can tell you is with the resources you've told me you have, the time you have, and what you're concerned about right now, these three are the ones that I want to talk about the most. The next seven we're going to discuss, but I think they can wait, or I'm not as concerned, or, you know, this is where I don't think we should spend as much time
Mm.
based on that because it's bringing the everything's on fire into a heat map of, okay, everything's on fire, but also you
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
prioritize when everything's on fire.
Hmm.
And that is something that just takes time and experience. You know what I mean? And even then, it takes like something I love about one of the quality folks on my team who I've worked for years. I actually met her at IU. Um, and told her at that point in time, I was like, I'm going to hire you. I just don't know when and where, but I'm going to. You're like the best quality person I've ever met. And it's because she's hyper vigilant. So she'll
Mm.
find stuff I wouldn't have the patience to find. She'll find stuff I might even dismiss, but she knows she does it. So she'll definitely self like aware it, right? So she'll say, okay, so I found 15 things. I want to be really clear. Five of these you are going to tell me are not that big of a deal, but I did find them. So I'm just writing them down so that we know that they're there. We have documentation. We can use them if we need to. But I'm self identifying that that was probably over the top to find those five. These 10 are where I think we're going to want to spend our time. So you get the best of both worlds. You get
Hmm.
everything, but you get someone who knows, yeah, I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole too far because I know this is probably extra. But also, there's something there. So let's just not pretend like there's no smoke because we want to be aware. And heaven forbid, we want to find it before somebody else does. And you want to be able to say with a straight face to an auditor, oh, yeah, we saw that, but we dismissed it because of da 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 da. If you'd like to revisit it, we'd be happy to.
Mm.
And then that's it. Right. And so I'm with you. It's like, how do you find, for me, I want the hypervigilant, but I need you to be self aware of it. I need you to know that you're doing that. And I
Yeah.
need you to be able to then, before we get in front of the client, decide where we spend time. And I need you to be able to take it from, okay, we're going to change, say, like if, for a legal example, we're going to change the wording in this contract because we're concerned about this particular risk. And so I want to change it this way. So internally, we're going to work through that. But to you, the client, I want it to be something you can understand on a much more basic level.
Yeah, no,
Look,
self-awareness is the key. I'm referring more to like somebody brand new, they had a
oh,
bad
yeah,
experience at another industry, and then they try to bring it here because they had bad experience there, so they just assume
mhm,
everywhere is the same, and
yeah,
then they start looking for things as opposed to like actually learning what we're
yeah.
doing.
And
I've had some like that throughout my years.
that's where, like, to be fair, I have a lot of love and respect for, apparently my dog agrees. He's whining in the background. Um, I I have a lot of love and respect for independent sites and site networks over academia because whether you think you're doing it well or not, and everyone's got different thoughts, the way you integrate into learning clinical research or becoming a coordinator or working at an IRB at a large academic center is just really different than how it's done at a small site
Yeah,
or at a small independent IRB.
yeah,
Some of it is pro, like, like I know when I was at IU's Cancer Center, we had a fantastic education coordinator. We had like 4 weeks. We had this whole system you went through when you were new. So like we didn't leave you hanging. And you really felt like you had a structured upbringing into the system. Having said that, week 5, we assigned you the hardest trial that was low enrolling and you hit the ground running. And it was like, well, you got your 4 weeks. Good job. Good luck.
yeah,
And you hadn't had a lot of hands-on time necessarily. So like there's no perfect way to do it, but I think that the smaller sites like a Yuma actually have a better shot at
mm,
executing it well and probably do it better because you guys are in a place where you're like, look, we don't have necessarily some robust, amazing learning information management system that so and so and so and so. But what we do have is 3 great coordinators who know this place inside and out. And all I want you to do is follow them around for the next
yeah,
two
yeah,
days.
yeah.
You are glue. I mean, glue. And not in the middle of an appointment, but when it's right, ask as many questions as you can. And
Right.
then, here's what I want you to go home and maybe read at night and try to
Yeah,
begin to absorb,
yeah,
right? Because you're in the trenches and it's live and it's real. And people just tend to do better with a quick
yeah.
uptick
It's
on that.
practical, and if they really want to
Yes.
grow their career, they will learn and figure
Right.
things out. But sometimes it can
Right.
be a distraction if you get the wrong person because the other people are telling you, "Hey, this person's like
Right.
interrogating us over here. We don't have time for
Right.
this."
Right, exactly. And so it's because that was what I always tried to break down, no matter where I am, is don't you, there, no education should be, I do this because that's what Dan taught me to do. I don't ever
Hmm.
want to hear that. I want to
Hmm.
hear, I do this because that's our SOP. I do that because the FDA requires us to. I do that because the sponsor requested it. I do that, be
Hmm.
like, it should never be, I do this because so and so told me this is how it's done. That's not a reason. You can't say that in front of an auditor. You can never say that in front of an auditor. So I need a real reason. It was
Hmm.
our policy, it's the federal regulation, it's the best
And those
practice.
are the kind of good pushbacks. Like if your employee tells you, "Hey, I know you're telling us to do this, but I think our SOP needs to be revised." Like that would
Yep,
be ideal, right?
exactly.
As a site
Exactly.
owner. But it takes experience to get to that level.
Well, and that was where for my career, and I know we've been talking for a while and probably need to wrap, but for my career, that was where it was like it came full circle. So you learned all these huge enterprise-wide problems on a
Hmm.
massive, huge volume scale. You saw
Hmm.
everything that could go wrong and right. And I got to travel. I got to see it done in different countries. I got to see it done at different campuses. Like I said, got to do it in social behavioral as well as biomedical. So like getting to see all these different ways, different leadership, different oversight, different politics. Like I mean, I went through 3 different vice presidents of research while I was there. So they each had a different way that they were doing things. And then they each
Wow.
had different ways they wanted the university to grow. So, and they had different backgrounds. So, like learning how to change how you handle things and what we prioritize and what projects are going to be first versus second. So it was fantastic. But then I came out and I figured I'd work with academic medical centers, cancer centers, that's be who I'd contract with. That makes sense. And then I started picking up sites and independent
Hmm.
sites at that. And it was like, oh, snap, you don't have a research administration office to call. You don't have the HRPP office to call. You don't have the quality officer down the hall. Like, wait a minute, how do you guys do this? And to be fair, it was fun because you guys aren't as embroiled in politics and the way we've always done it as some of those academics who've been doing it for 20 years. And it really is a change for them to try to do something new. You guys were newer on the scene and more open to just change. It was like,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
we're here. We need help. We're listening. We've got patients. We've got trials, and we're not sure what to do with this particular audit finding, or we're
Well,
not sure if the FDA is going to do this.
it'll be interesting to see what as site networks evolve, if they take on the best of both worlds or the worst of both worlds or some
Right.
combination of the two and what that actually means. But we don't know.
Oh,
We don't know yet. We don't know the answer. I think your dog wants to go on a walk or something.
so someone is delivering a lot of stuff to our
Ah,
cul-de-sac right now, and
he's being
my dog is
vigilant. That's good.
very, he's very upset
Good
about it.
boy.
He's not
Good
concerned
boy.
about this,
Good boy. Uh,
which is why I was like, I'm trying to wrap you a little bit because it's not going to stop for a minute, and I
I mean,
can't get out of here.
your career is like a at least a 3 hour podcast because we haven't even. All right, so how do we wrap this up quicker? So
I mean, I think you get to the point where you come out of academia, and what do you? I think where we got to today, to be fair, is you come out of academia, and like, where do you apply that in site world, and
yeah,
how is
so
that a
what was your first
benefit?
place like in the private world?
First class solutions. So it was a consulting firm that did not work in clinical trials.
Ah, so you took a like a little break from clinical trials.
Mm-mm,
No.
no. So I walked out of IU with no job, and wasn't sure what I was going to do. I
Wait,
started
hold
going
on.
around.
Okay, why did you leave? It seemed like you liked that job so far. The pay sucked or what?
No, no, it wasn't that at all. I was getting to that place where I'd hit enough brick walls. I'd had enough different work environments where I felt like I didn't fit in the room, or the room wasn't maybe made for someone like me. And
Huh.
I knew that I loved what I was doing, but I also knew if I stayed where I was probably going to burn out in a bad way, like leave the industry bad way. And so it was like, how do I
Interesting.
take what I know, take what I think I'm good at, but do it in a different way so that I don't burn out?
So was that
And that,
like getting bored or just too stressful?
no, not bored, just in really large organizations, it's all about who your boss is, what team you're on, what department you're in, what building you're in, and
Mm-hmm.
that can change from day to day and week to week.
Mm.
And so one week you may love life, and the next you may really not.
Hate it. Okay.
And
Fair
I
enough.
f- I feel like after almost 10 years there, it was like, okay, when are you going to sit in the driver's seat? Like you could sit in the back seat and squawk about everything that's happening in the driver's seat, or you could get in the
Mm-hmm.
driver's seat like a big girl and drive your own car and stop squawking and build something that you want to do. And so it was like, all right, that's what I'm going to do. And I figured, honestly, I would probably take a little bit of a break and then end up at one of your larger consulting firms or maybe one of your health law firms as like a subject matter expert, not like on the partner track or anything crazy like that, but just as a consultant expert that would come in like unique situations. Um, and they didn't really know what to do with me. And to be fair, I didn't really know what to do with them when I talked to most of them during that search, because it was like, so you want me to start like I just got out of school, but I have a decade of experience and you don't have anyone on your staff who can do what I can do. Why would I
Mm-hmm.
start at the beginning? But also they didn't have a mechanism for me. And so it was like, I get it. You don't normally have someone like me approach you. So like you don't really know what to do with me any more than I know how to approach you. And I had first class was in the clinical space. So they do billing and coding. And they had worked with several individuals that I knew in that space on the other side of the fence and had been very, very highly recommended. And so I had an in with their COO and co-founder and just said, could I just have 10 minutes of your time? I just want to know if I've lost my mind. Like maybe I should go back to some of the big firms and beg for that starter job. Maybe I'm being arrogant, but I don't think that's what I should do. And we got on the call, and about 30 seconds in, she said, pitch me. And I was like, your firm doesn't do what I do. And she was like, doesn't mean you can't contract under my firm. Pitch me. And I pitched her. And I said, to be fair, you already work with all the major academic medical centers and the NIH for everything that you do. And they trust you, and you've been around for 30 years. Now you just have to tell them you do a whole new line of compliance services. And my client book is written, and we're off to the races. Let's go. And then you get a whole new revenue stream that you were just leaving on the table and you just didn't know you were. And she was like, okay. And that was that. And that was 2017 until, gosh, 2023.
So you brought them a whole new revenue stream,
Yeah. And
without them having to
it
do
was,
much.
and to be fair, they let me. Like they were like, you go play,
Hmm.
you do your thing, you do it your way, as long as you're not misrepresenting the company, as long as you're not, running around naked on the internet, like we're good. And she was great. She helped me understand, how to write some of these proposals, how to protect yourself against a client that might not pay later. Yeah, she just taught me a lot of the business chops pieces of it
Yeah.
that I wasn't already comfortable with. And then genuinely, I had a client buy me out. I had a client come in and say, "Well, we want to buy you out." And I was like, I mean, I have like a non-compete. You'll have to buy me
What
out."
do you
And they
mean
were
buy
like,
you
"No."
out?
Well, so at that point in time, you could still have non-competes in consulting firms and law firms. And or what a lot of firms do is they say, if you're an active client and you want to hire one of our people out from underneath us,
Ah,
and you got to know them because you came to us as a firm, then whatever you're going to pay them first year salary, you have to pay that back to us because you're stealing our bread and butter. You're stealing our person.
okay.
And so
So it's a
that, I mean,
way to get around the stealing, basically.
yeah,
It's like, hey,
yeah.
we know it's hard to
You can steal
enforce,
them
but
for a price.
yeah,
You can
yeah,
steal them,
I
but for
got
a
you.
price. And so
Wow.
I'd had several firms or several clients ask and inquire, but I was always like, guys, you don't want to buy out. It would be too much. And this one was like, yeah, well, what if we said that wasn't a problem? What if we want you? And I was like, okay, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
So I left them, and then when that engagement ended was when I had joined Darshan for a year before starting
Ah,
ED Law. So that was
KLF.
like that trajectory. Yep, that
And
was
their
that.
Sean probably showed you it's possible. Um,
Oh, absolutely,
right? Or did you already know it
absolutely.
was possible?
He and I had been friends and colleagues for years. We'd referred to each other. To be fair, when I had left first class and I had some legal clients there, and we didn't have another lawyer at the time I could pass them on to at the firm,
Mm-hmm.
I had even given him some and said, like, hey, please take good care of these folks because I don't have somewhere to send them. I'm going in-house for a client. I can't maintain them. So we'd had a great rapport. And I had reached out to him when that particular job was coming to an end and said, I'm not sure what I want to do next. Like I knew that in-house role with that client would come to an end. It just happened a little sooner than I thought.
Mm.
And so I was like, I haven't really had time to go like, what's next? Do I go back to consulting? Do I go to another firm? And even he actually at the time was like, I don't know why you don't start your own thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not that it's easy, but just you've got the clients, you've been around enough, you're a known quantity. And that was where, like you and I had talked about last time, I had said, like, I've got a young kid. I
Mm-hmm.
know what being an entrepreneur looks like and how hard it is. I'd really rather contract under somebody else as long as it's someone, I trust,
Mm-hmm.
because that's just better for my life right now. And it was funny, even then, like I said, he was like, I don't know why you're going to do that. And,
Mm-hmm.
several people in my life said the same thing. Like, I don't know why you don't just start your own thing.
Well, all
I was just
roads
very
lead.
convinced. I mean, I'd been through that experience.
Ultimately, if it's meant to be, I think it's meant to be. It's the same
Oh,
thing with site owners. Like I've had so many
oh yeah,
coordinators work for me, and then a few of them would go start their own site because they see that, well, it's not as difficult as I thought.
right,
And I even tell them, like, honestly, you can do this. I'd rather
right.
you go to a different market and we can partner. That way
Well,
we can
yeah, because that's
expand
a
our
win-win for
network.
everyone.
Yep, yep. So part of my
Absolutely.
job, I try to tell site owners, is groom, like, yeah, grow your own site, but groom the next generation of site owner.
Yes.
Maybe they're gonna be a extension of your site, and that we've done
Well,
that before.
that's it for me too. Like I've been telling as I've been hiring the team, look, I don't have any designs on private equity or venture capital money. That's not really what this is about. I'm not looking to get acquired in 3 years. This isn't a, AI company, da da da. But I do have a longstanding commitment to the idea of mentoring the next generation because I didn't even know this law existed in law school. Most of us didn't. I mean, once
Mm,
I was at IU for about 2 years, I remember going to the folks who had studied health law at the law school and was like, so what classes did you take on this that I didn't take? Because I should probably go take some classes if I'm really going to do this. And they
yeah.
just laughed. But they were like, what? You think there's like classes on this? And I was like, so we really are just learning all of this on the job, even though there's like 20 of us who work here who graduated from the law school right there. And we're not going to like teach people about this or inform the next generation. We ended up actually starting law school classes, and I was an
Let's
adjunct
go.
faculty member for, I don't know, 10, 12 years. I've still got friends who are doing it. And I'm thrilled because it was like law students don't even know this is an option. They don't even know this world exists. And it's huge for us. And for those of us who do it and love it, we're excited about it. We want you to know. So I feel the same way. It's like, how do I create something in this
Hmm.
team that I
Hmm.
can go keep this going? Like one day I'll retire, and and at that point I'll pass it on to someone or sell it to someone or whatever. But it's not about the acquisition. It's about knowing that like now people know a law firm can do this. Now people
Right.
know that a law firm can have quality and ops and can be dedicated to clinical trials. Like I dream of the day when I go to a scope and I'm not handing out a business card to everyone who goes, "You do what? Wait, there's a law firm that does only this?" I mean, it's great. I love the notoriety. It's an excellent marketing feature for those of us who are in the space, right? But that's not really what you want. You want people to be like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I've heard about you guys. Your specialty. You're great. Yeah, there's a couple of you guys out there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you know so and so and so and so. Awesome. Okay. And I call them for this and I call you for this. Okay, great." Like you want it to be something people realize is a real part of the industry that's important.
Yeah.
Um, and like you said, you want the next generation of potential quality ops or legal folks to know like you could do this as a job,
Right.
and it's really important. But you are going to have to get pretty creative on how you get educated because it's not going to be in a book. It's just not.
No, no.
It's
There's a
not in a
lot.
book.
I mean, there's a
Not
whole
yet.
nother
We're working on
podcast. There's a
it.
maybe that's the cliffhanger for the next one. I think there is something where you involve like a potential with your life's meaning or meaning at that
Yeah.
time, and then it involves other people. So,
Yeah.
spoiler alert, it involves other people typically, and we can do that for part three because I think that's
Yeah.
a good
Absolutely.
segue. So, Edie,
Yeah.
I know you gotta take the puppy out. I gotta take mine out actually too. Everybody connect with Edie Life Science Law right now. Underneath this video and in the show notes is her LinkedIn. So you need to go connect with her and then message her from there about whatever needs or questions you might have. But she's
And come
definitely
see
a
me
one
at
of
Save Our
one. Oh
Sites.
yeah,
We're only a couple weeks away. I can't wait.
she killed it. My first ED experience. I know like
I
I
convinced you to use
talked to you.
paper.
Yeah, like I talked to you before, like, oh, thanks for coming, hi. I didn't,
Yeah, yeah,
nothing
yeah, of
beyond
course.
that. And then I saw
Yeah.
you on stage. And I told my wife, she was sitting next to me. I said, I'm only here because I wanted to see Chris wear this wig. But what I really didn't know I needed to see was Edie killing it. Edie killed it. Because at first I'm not paying attention. I'm like, okay, I saw Chris with his wig. Then I'm thinking, do I need to leave? What I gotta do? I'm ADHD, right? Like,
Right.
and my
Well,
wife's
you're also
like,
running a conference. You're in the middle of
yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah. And then,
you
and then
know.
I hear you just killing it. And I go to my wife like, dude, this lady, she doesn't even like paper, and she's convincing everyone, myself included, that this I will want her on my side. That's what I told my wife. I said, imagine getting into beef with this one. You don't
Yeah, I'm
want
not that
beef with
pleasant.
this.
I'm not that pleasant. I try to be real, real nice, but man, when you get on the other side of me, ask my husband how that goes.
Oof, no thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Shout
not.
out to your husband. Um,
Right.
so everyone go connect. We'll do a part three ASAP, and
Yes,
then
please.
we'll do it before SOS, and then we'll meet up there, and maybe you'll be in
Yep.
the vlog over there.
Oh, I would love to. It'd be awesome. Awesome.
Okay, yeah, I'm doing a
Awesome. Awesome.
vlog.
Can't wait.
Okay,
Can't wait.
like, subscribe, comment, share, go connect with Edie Edens right now. Bye bye.